Bungie. For many gamers, that name once represented creativity, innovation, and a passionate devotion to crafting unforgettable worlds. They were the studio that gave us Halo, a franchise so impactful it redefined console shooters. They were the underdogs who fought for independence, breaking free from publishers to create games on their own terms. But now, Bungie stands in a very different light, a studio struggling with layoffs, player backlash, declining game quality, and the suffocating grip of corporate greed. Today, we'll dive deep into the rise and fall of Bungie Studios, from their meteoric success to their painful present, and see how ambition, corporate partnerships, and greed shaped their journey. Bungie's story begins in 1991 in a small Chicago apartment. Alex Seropian and Jason Jones founded the studio with a simple goal: make great games. In the early days, Bungie was known for quirky Mac titles like Marathon and Myth. These games built a small but loyal fan base, showing Bungie's knack for tight gameplay and compelling universes. Everything changed in 2000. Microsoft acquired Bungie and handed them a project that would become Halo: Combat Evolved. Released in 2001 as the Xbox's flagship title, Halo wasn't just a hit, it was a revolution. It defined console FPS controls, pioneered LAN and online multiplayer for consoles, and told a cinematic sci-fi story that resonated with millions. From Halo 2's groundbreaking Xbox Live integration to Halo 3's massive cultural moment, Bungie became a household name. The studio wasn't just making games, they were shaping gaming history. But by the mid-2000s, Bungie felt trapped. While Microsoft's money and platform made them famous, the creative pressure and franchise ownership issues left the team frustrated. In 2007, they negotiated independence, leaving Microsoft to form Bungie LLC, an autonomous studio once again. They handed Halo to 343 Industries, knowing their crown jewel would no longer be theirs. It was a risky move, but Bungie wanted to control their destiny. In 2010, Bungie shocked the industry again, signing a massive 10-year publishing deal with Activision. Out of this deal came Destiny, a shared-world sci-fi shooter, promising a decade-long saga of exploration, lore, and evolving gameplay. When Destiny launched in 2014, it was visually stunning, mechanically polished, but narratively hollow. The infamous Grimoire cards hid most of the lore outside the game, and many fans felt shortchanged. But thanks to excellent gunplay and addictive loot systems, Bungie kept players coming back. Over time, expansions like The Taken King won back the community. Destiny 2, released in 2017, seemed poised to cement Bungie's new era, but then came the microtransactions, XP throttling controversies, and heavy reliance on grinding. By 2019, Bungie ended their partnership with Activision earlier than expected. Publicly, this was framed as a victory for creative freedom. No more corporate oversight, no more forced monetization, or so it seemed. Bungie promised the community they'd steer Destiny 2 into a brighter, more player-focused future. Independence from Activision in 2019 was supposed to be the dawn of a new era for Bungie. Without corporate oversight, the studio promised they could focus on quality content, fair monetization, and long-term plans for Destiny 2. But what followed was not the renaissance fans had hoped for. It was the beginning of a slow but noticeable decline. While the first few months after the split felt promising, cracks began to show. Bungie's seasonal content model, introduced in late 2019, was meant to provide a steady flow of smaller updates instead of large expansions every year. In theory, this would keep the game fresh and engaging. In practice, it quickly became repetitive. Each season followed a familiar loop, a handful of story missions, a new activity to grind, and a battle pass full of rewards. Many players began describing the game as busy work rather than an epic adventure. The in-game economy also began to shift. The Eververse store, Bungie's real money cosmetic shop, took on a much larger role. Exotic armor ornaments, weapon skins, and even certain event cosmetics were locked behind high silver prices. While Bungie insisted these purchases were optional, Many fans felt the quality of earnable rewards in the game was being lowered intentionally to push microtransactions. By 2021 and 2022, frustration within the community grew. Content vaulting, Bungie's controversial decision to remove older expansions and activities, was seen by many as deleting content people had already paid for. Bungie argued it was necessary for technical reasons and to keep the game manageable. But the optics were bad. Paid content was disappearing, while monetized content was expanding. Internally, things weren't looking much better. Reports began surfacing about poor communication between leadership and staff, crunch periods during major expansions, and a growing disconnect between the developers and the player base. Bungie's public statements often promised more transparency, but major design decisions, like nerfing fan-favorite weapons or adding grind-heavy progression systems, left many players feeling ignored. The situation worsened in late 2023. Bungie announced layoffs affecting around 8% of its workforce, including longtime community managers, narrative designers, and veteran developers. These cuts came after Destiny 2's engagement numbers fell below targets, and the Final Shape expansion underperformed in pre-orders. For many, the layoffs were a betrayal. Bungie had been acquired by Sony for $6 billion just a year earlier, and fans assumed that kind of financial backing would protect jobs and ensure stability. Instead, the move reinforced a bitter truth. Bungie's independence had not shielded them from the corporate pressures they once fought to escape. In the eyes of many fans, Bungie's decline was no longer just about questionable game design. It was about a studio losing its identity. Once celebrated as a creative powerhouse, Bungie was now accused of putting revenue targets over player trust, chasing seasonal engagement metrics instead of bold innovation, and treating their loyal community as a monetization pipeline rather than partners in a shared universe. When Bungie ended their deal with Activision in 2019, they presented themselves as a studio finally free from the shackles of corporate control. Activision had often been the convenient villain in the eyes of players, accused of pushing aggressive monetization, prioritizing profits over quality, and turning live service games into endless grind machines. Bungie's split was framed as a victory for creative freedom and a return to putting players first. But what came next told a different story. The truth is, corporate greed didn't vanish when Activision left the picture. It simply changed form. Bungie still needed to hit revenue targets to keep their ambitious live service model alive. And without a publishing partner to shoulder marketing and operational costs, the pressure to monetize fell squarely on them. In the following years, monetization strategies began to intensify. The Eververse store, once a side feature, became a central pillar of Bungie's business model. Instead of mostly cosmetic fluff, it now offered high-demand items like exotic ornaments, premium armor sets, and shaders, all locked behind silver. Bungie's paid currency. The prices for these items crept higher, and more content was deliberately designed with a FOMO, fear of missing out, mentality. Limited-time cosmetics and event bundles pressured players to buy immediately or risk never seeing the item again. Then came the seasonal pass system. On paper, it offered steady streams of content for a reasonable price, but in practice, it functioned like a subscription that demanded constant engagement. If you missed a season, you missed out on weapons, armor, and story beats, which often created a feeling of being left behind in the community. This wasn't accidental. Bungie had shifted from a game designed for bursts of excitement to a service designed to keep you logging in week after week, season after season. The irony didn't go unnoticed. For years, Bungie had implied that the worst monetization practices in Destiny were the result of Activision's influence. Yet now, under Bungie's sole control, and later under Sony's ownership, those very practices became more aggressive. The company began operating less like the scrappy, player-first developer they once were, and more like the kind of publisher they had once fought to escape. Sony's acquisition of Bungie in 2022 for $6 billion only amplified these trends. While Bungie still maintained operational independence, corporate expectations grew. Sony's investment came with a clear goal: make Bungie a long-term revenue driver. And in the world of live service games, revenue means engagement, and engagement often means monetization. The shift was visible to the community. players noticed that armor sets tied to major in-game events were now sold in the Eververse instead of earned through gameplay. New expansions were sold at full price, yet still paired with seasonal passes and microtransaction stores. And the cosmetic bundles, they began pushing $15–20 for a single outfit. For many loyal fans, this was the breaking point. It wasn't just that Bungie was charging money, it was that the soul of the studio had shifted. They were no longer building content simply to delight players. They were designing content to drive spending habits. In the end, Bungie's cooperative greed wasn't about a single shady decision. It was a slow erosion of trust. Every overpriced bundle, every FOMO-driven item, every grind-heavy season chipped away at the relationship between Bungie and its community. And once that trust is gone, even the best gunplay in the world can't bring it back. After years of highs and lows, Bungie today finds itself at a crossroads. A studio still beloved by millions but struggling to maintain its identity and relevance in an ever-changing gaming landscape. Destiny 2 remains Bungie's flagship and lifeblood. Despite the decline in player numbers and growing frustration over monetization and content cycles, the game still boasts a dedicated core of players. This loyal community supports Destiny 2 through expansions, seasonal updates, and in-game purchases. Yet, the once thriving player base has shrunk noticeably compared to its peak years, and new player acquisition has slowed significantly. The reasons are complex. On one hand, Destiny 2 still delivers some of the most satisfying gunplay and PvP experiences on consoles and PC. The game's world design, cooperative raids, and social features continue to attract dedicated fans who appreciate Bungie's craftsmanship. But on the other hand, content fatigue is real. Many longtime players complain about repetitive seasonal structures, the heavy grind required to stay competitive, and the aggressive monetization that clouds the experience. Meanwhile, Bungie's reputation has taken a hit. Formerly hailed as pioneers who put players first, they're now often criticized for prioritizing profits over passion. Social media and gaming forums buzz with debates about the studio's decisions, from layoffs to content vaulting to microtransactions. These controversies have strained the relationship between Bungie and its community, creating an atmosphere of skepticism and frustration. Beyond Destiny 2, Bungie's future hinges on their next major project, the reboot of Marathon. The series that helped establish the studio's early identity. Announced with enthusiasm, Marathon represents a chance for Bungie to reconnect with its roots, delivering deep storytelling, immersive worlds, and innovative gameplay outside of the live service model. However, expectations are mixed. Some fans are hopeful that Marathon will restore Bungie's reputation as visionary creators. Others remain cautious, wondering if the studio's recent struggles and corporate pressures will limit their ability to innovate. Financially, Bungie is now part of Sony Interactive Entertainment following a $3.6 billion acquisition in 2022. This deal gives Bungie significant resources and stability, but also ties them to corporate expectations for profitability and growth. How Bungie balances creative freedom with shareholder demands will be key to their success. In summary, Bungie today is a studio at a turning point. They retain a passionate core fan base and have promising projects on the horizon. But they must rebuild trust, refocus on quality content, and adapt to an evolving industry, or risk further decline. The rise and fall of Bungie is a story about ambition, creativity, and the danger of losing touch with your audience. They went from humble beginnings to industry icons to struggling under the weight of their own corporate ambitions. In the end, Bungie's journey is a cautionary tale for every studio. No matter how groundbreaking your past, sustained success depends on listening to your players, valuing your developers, and resisting the temptation to put profits before passion. Because in gaming and in life, you can't just build a legacy, you have to protect it. And that's the full story of Bungie, from their legendary rise with Halo, through their bold but challenging journey with Destiny, to the struggles and controversies they face today. It's a powerful reminder of how even the biggest studios can falter when creativity clashes with corporate greed. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please make sure to like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more gaming history and analysis. I'm striving to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support truly means the world to me. It helps me keep creating the content you love. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.